Hi, welcome back to another episode of Knitting with Annie. I'm Annie Lupton of Boho Chic Fiber Co. And this is the time when I answer a few of your questions, share some sneak peeks of new things I'm working on, and just share some fun things, techniques and knitting things, kind of go wherever you guys lead. So I'm ready to answer a few questions today and share a few things. So let's just dive right in. So the first question that I have today, someone was wondering if designers' patterns are only for personal use, or if someone could make them and could knit up a pattern that I write, and then if they could sell that finished item or give it away as gifts and things like that. I personally do not mind if the things that you make you give as gifts. If you're gonna sell them, it might be nice if you just included like that it's a pattern by me, but I don't really mind at all. You would probably have to ask each individual designer how they feel about it. Certainly as gifts, I don't think anybody would mind. Maybe if you're selling it, maybe some people would mind, but most people that are buying a hand knit item are probably not knitting themselves, and so or less likely to. So yeah, I don't mind if you're gonna sell it on like Etsy or something like that. It'd be nice if you had a little blurb that said it was designed, who it was designed by. But yeah, I don't mind that. That was a quick one. The next question that I had was about embroidery, and someone had asked, they noticed that I have some designs with embroidery on them, and they were wondering how, just generally, how do you embroider on knits, if I use a hoop, and just how that whole process works when you're working on like a knit fabric as opposed to like a woven cotton, what people traditionally embroider on. So I thought I would kind of show you how not show you, but tell you a little bit about how I do that. So about hoops first, if you have ever embroidered, you will probably have done something like this, where you have a wooden hoop and you put your fabric through it so that it's nice and straight and taut. And when you do that, it makes it easier to take your needle and embroider through the fabric. That's kind of traditional embroidery on a woven fabric like this, just this cotton here. And some people do use a hoop when they embroider on their knits. I personally do not, but I guess I kind of just worry that it'll stretch the fabric out, but I'm sure there are ways you could do it where you don't stretch it too much. I just kind of do it freehand, and I have a few patterns that utilize embroidery, and in those I usually have a tutorial linked to like a YouTube video where I kind of walk you through. And I just remembered I grabbed a few patterns, but I didn't grab the Christmas ones that I have. I have a wreath sweater and stockings. Maybe I'll do those on like a special holiday episode sometime to show you. But typically what I will do is walk you through step by step how to do the different stitches that I used. And I actually have a whole class that I did on this for Craftsy. And we go through this sweater here, which I think we just called like boho embroidered sweater. But there's a pattern for this like kind of simple blank canvas sweater. And then I walk you through how to do each of these stitches. There's different kinds of chain and running stitches, the simple lazy daisy stitches, French knots. These are just variations of the lazy daisy with using like two colors. So these are really like the most basic stitches. And I go through that in this class, and the class really breaks down like every aspect of the embroidery. So if you're a total new beginner, that could be fun for you to check out. I can leave a link below. I just dropped yarn, 1 second. But yeah, basically I'm pretty relaxed about it. I will do something like if I'm trying to space something out evenly, like let's say I have this shawl here where I have little lazy daisy flowers on it. And with this one, I put little pins or little like locking stitch markers in throughout where I wanted the flowers to be. So I kind of just laid it out and I put pins in where I wanted them to be. And then I just slowly went through and did one at a time. So these are simple little lazy daisy flowers with a little French knot in the middle. This one is my All Things Spring shawl. And it's a fun shape and it just has lots of those little lazy daisy flowers on it. That's super basic stitch that anyone can pick up and learn how to do. If you're looking to do embroidery and you're new to it on your knitting, you could look for videos, just regular embroidery videos. Just be aware that when you're working on knit fabric, because the fabric has stretch in it, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult to work on when you have a really taut fabric like the woven one that I showed with the ring. It's much easier to go in and out and be more precise about where you want your stitches to line up. So I like to, when I teach class on this, I also taught a class at Vogue Knitting, and hopefully I'll teach it again someday if they're ever back in person, because it's when you have to kind of it works better, I feel like, when you're in person. But if I teach that again, I will definitely, I share this every time that you kind of, if you're a perfectionist, like embroidering on knits might not be the best thing that you want to try, because mine never turn out perfect. It's hard to measure everything out exact. If you are that kind of person who like you want things exactly the same size and the exact same way, you might just find yourself getting really frustrated with embroidery on knits. But if you can just like take a more of a laid back approach and kind of just relax and like have fun with it, it can be a really fun way to just like jazz up your knitting projects. Yeah, I guess the only tips I would have is when you're working, you're gonna have one hand underneath the fabric and you're gonna have the needle and the yarn and you're going from the top to below the fabric. So you just wanna, with your non-dominant hand, you're just gonna kind of create a flat surface and just kind of go slow and don't pull too taut. If you pull really tight, you're gonna pucker that knit fabric up and it's gonna distort the way the fabric lies. So if you just err on the side of like a little bit loose and just like very gently and slowly work. The other thing is for something like a French knot, like that little knot in the center there, you also wanna be very careful when you're pulling it through onto the wrong side of the fabric at the end, that you don't pull it too fast or too tight because it'll pop right through. You have, there's just many more holes in knitting than there is in like a solid fabric. And so you just have to kind of be gentle and work slow so that your stitches don't pull through to the wrong side. It sounds more complicated than it is. Really, all you have to do is kind of go slow and use the right size yarn. If you find your yarn is pulling through and it's not showing up very well, you want to make sure you have a nice contrasting color. This is my collage crescent shawl, and I did this fun little detail on the bottom here, and this one just uses chain stitches to draw out those little shapes, and then a bunch of little French knots. It's kind of like a little curtain with little things hanging down. I don't know what you would call it, but I just, what I did for this one is I pinned out the same thing. I measured out where I wanted these points to be. And then once I had those spots, then I kind of just freehanded it, because you can't draw on knit fabric the same way that if you're using a cotton fabric, you can literally in pencil, like really lightly draw out and then kind of trace with your stitches. You can't really do that. At least I haven't found a way to do that on knit fabric. And so what I meant when I said you're not gonna have it be perfect. Like, do you see each of these is like very slightly different. None of them is exactly the same. So if that is the kind of thing that would bother you, maybe just don't even try it. or consider it an exercise in letting go of perfectionism. But yeah, so like with this one, you can set yourself up for success by measuring things out. Like these were a couple inches apart, and then I did the first loop, and then I did the loop underneath, and I kind of went from there, and I just measured out how many French knots I want, and kind of spaced them out as evenly as I could for that one. And let's see, I have one more with me. Like I said, I have a couple of Christmas ones that were really fun, and they might even be packed away with my holiday stuff. So maybe another time I'll show you those. This one, this is probably one of my favorite embroidered designs. It's a little cropped sweater. It's called the Tattoo Crop, and it's plain for the most part. It has these kind of bell sleeves, which I really like. And on one sleeve, it has this really cool, very organic embroidered section. And again, in this one, I walk you through the pattern. I kind of do steps. Like the first step we did is like that big center zigzag line. And then the second step is you make branches off of each of the points. And then the final step was you make the little tiny branches coming off of the bigger branches. And this is just chain stitches on this one, yep. So really simple stitches, and it's very organic. What I like about embroidery is it has a very organic, natural feel to it, and it can just really make a piece special and fun. And the only other tip that I would have is if you can work it on a flat fabric, it's easier to do. I did this sleeve flat before we seamed it. It makes it easier to work with rather than working inside of a sleeve or something. The yoked sweater, that one is worked from when it's finished. So with something like this, if you're working on a yoke or a sleeve that's already finished and you can't do it flat, you're just gonna kind of keep one hand on the inside and then work your way around the yoke, and just take your time and go slow. But yeah, so if you're looking to embroider your knits, I say go for it. It's really fun. It can make an old piece new again. Like if you have like an old sweater, like a solid sweater that you maybe don't wear, it's kind of boring to you or something, you could just do like a little patch of flowers somewhere. I've seen people do them on the elbows, kind of like an elbow patch. You could also use it for patching. Like let's say you have a hole on your sweater somewhere, you could embroider, you could do like a woven stitch over to cover the hole, or embroider a flower or like a little ladybug or something on top to kind of cover it up. I've seen people do that. Yeah, just get creative. There's lots of ideas. If you look on Pinterest, I feel like it's getting more and more popular to see people embroidering on their knits. Too, if you browse like on Instagram, I know there's a girl who, I'll try to find her account and link it below. I think she's Dutch, and she does a lot of embroidering on her fabrics, her knits. She has a lot of like mohair, really light, fuzzy, light sweaters, and she'll just do lots of flowers and little things on them. And she does a lot of the same color, so it's very subtle and very pretty. I'll try to link her below, and I know that I forget her name. I think her name is Tiff. She used to go by Dottie Angel. She used to do a lot of, she called them woolly tattoos, where she would do like bugs and butterflies and different things like that. And she did a lot of embroidery too. She had a lot of cool stuff on there. So yeah, just kind of go for it. I definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It can make just a kind of a simple sweater. It can give it like an extra little oomph. So yeah, so if you have more specific questions, you could check out some of my embroidery videos that I have on YouTube. Most of them, I think all of them, are pretty specific to patterns, but you could still watch them and get the gist of how it works. And I give some tips on working those too. Or if you want like a more in-depth class on it, you could check out the Craftsy one, and I will try to link that below as well. So yeah, so that's embroidering on knits, the basic for introduction to that. Let me see what else I have here for questions. This is the last question actually, and then I'll share a couple things. Somebody was wondering, they saw a reel that I did on getting ready for Rhinebeck, and I have all my sweaters on, and it's kind of like a cute little thing, like just getting ready for Rhinebeck. And they were going for the first time, and they wondered, what tips do I have, and like how do I suggest they prepare for Rhinebeck? If you don't know what Rhinebeck is, it's the big sheep and wool festival in New York State, and it takes place in Rhinebeck, New York. And I've been maybe just twice, maybe 2 or 3 times now. Last year it was off, so I didn't go. This year it is on. I think it's going to be a little bit different from how it typically is due to COVID. You know, I'm sure there's masking and different things like that. It may just be a smaller amount of people vending and selling at the show. I really don't know what to expect yet. But I can give you some basic kind of tips for things maybe that I wish I had known or that I figured out along the way. So when you go to Rhinebeck, you usually have to book a hotel or a room, like at a, what's it called? Like when you rent a house with friends or something. I forget what that's called. Like an Airbnb or something. Usually you have to do that pretty far in advance. So if you're like just trying to go now, I don't even know if anything or what would be available, but you usually want to book that really far in advance because everything sells out around this time there, because so many people come to this event. It just gets really crazy. So if you haven't booked it yet, good luck. I don't know if you'll find something or not, but the first tip would be book it early, wherever it is you want to stay, and plan with whoever, if you want to go alone or if you want to have meet up with like knitting friends, just kind of plan accordingly to how much space you'll need. I've gone twice with a friend of mine, Rachel, who does On the Round yarns, and she's in Maine. She's not gonna be able to make it this year, so I'm gonna go with a friend of mine who actually lives just down the street from me, who is a designer and knitter, Darby. Her name's Darby Photos. And yeah, she's a friend of mine, so she's gonna come with me this year. And I've never rented a house. I know a lot of people, that's like the whole thing that they do. They rent a whole house and they get like 10 people and it's a whole big party and event the whole weekend. I've never had a group big enough to go with, but maybe someday I'll do a bigger thing like that. Usually I've done like a motel or a hotel room, which has worked for me. I'm a little more introverted, so the thought of being with a group of like 10 people all weekend is like a little bit overwhelming to me. But yeah, like I can handle like a friend or two, you know, so I think I'll be good to go this year. But kind of think of yourself and like what you need and want. If you have a big group of friends that you're a part of, great, go for it. If you need a little downtime in the evenings, like me, you might be good with like one friend to go with. The next thing is on the website, they will have a list of all the vendors. So what I suggest is look at the list, go through, look at people's websites and Instagrams, get an idea of the places you definitely want to make sure that you don't miss. Like there might be like 200 vendors or something. It's really big. And if you just go in without a plan, it's easy to just feel overwhelmed. Like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't know what yarn to get. I don't know what to see. So if you have a list, even if you just have like 5 or like 10 specific vendors that you really want to make sure to visit, then you can kind of plan around that. Like maybe 3 vendors are in the same building. So you say, well, we're going to go to this building in the morning and then take a break and then look at your list and see where other people are. And you can plan a lot of that out ahead of time. I think that they give the locations of where they are, and there's probably a map on the website and stuff. I know when you get there, you'll get that as well, but I think some of that information is available ahead of time, so it's nice to have a plan. And if you're going with a group, you can all kind of make a plan together. Of course, you can always just walk in and just roam and do whatever, but some people get overwhelmed with like how big it is and not knowing like where to go or what to see first. So that can help you with that. The other thing is packing. Rhinebeck, the fun of Rhinebeck is getting to show off your hand knits. It's just a whole, like, hundreds or thousands, I mean, it must be thousands. It's a huge event. And so everyone's just walking around in their favorite hand knit sweaters and hats and shawls. And it's really fun to just show off your pieces. So I would say a lot of people will knit a Rhinebeck sweater specifically for that year to bring and wear. If you don't have time to knit something between now and then, just find your favorite sweaters. They can just be showstoppers, whatever, it's fun to find things that, it's fun to see people in their favorite sweaters. And that's the best part. Like, I know Christy Glass does a whole video on YouTube, like a montage of everyone telling about their Rhinebeck sweater, which is really fun. Everyone will kind of share. If you see a sweater that you like, don't be afraid to go up to people and ask, what is the design? Like, how can I find that online? People are always really friendly and willing to share, like, the name of their sweater and who designed it and stuff, which is really fun. So just plan out, there's Saturday and Sunday at the fairgrounds if you're going both days. So that would be 2 sweaters there. If you're doing any extra events, there's Indie Untangled, which is usually Friday. And then sometimes there's other events too off the fairgrounds. Certain like indie dyers in the area have put on their own little meetings. This year, I don't know who's gonna be doing that and how much of that there is, but keep your eye out for things like that. I usually bring 3 sweaters that I'm planning to wear for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then I'll also often bring like a shawl or a hat to wear as well. And as a designer, I usually bring patterns that are newer, either recently came out or are coming out soon. And I bring my favorites because I kind of want to just show off my favorite stuff. So that's a really fun part of Rhinebeck. The other thing you want to do is plan ahead again. A lot of it's planning ahead so that you make the most of when you're there. There are lots of meetups and like meet and greets going on. Certain designers will often do like meet at the Hill at this time on this day, or meet, by the cider donuts or different things at certain times. Sometimes people will have like a thing where it's like wear a Boho Chic Fiber Co design and meet up at this place, or wear a specific sweater. If there's a sweater that like went viral and it's really popular, everybody will wear that sweater and meet up and do a big picture, and it's really fun. I haven't had meetups for my designs yet, but maybe in the future I'll do that. But if there's a designer that you really like and they're going to be there, you could see if they're organizing some kind of event like that. It can be fun to meet people from around the country and see each other's sweaters and the colors that they use, and it can just be a really fun thing to do. So follow your favorite designers, and yarn companies might be doing similar things with meetups. That can be really fun. Yeah, I guess that's really it. The other thing I would suggest is if you're going shopping, most people will be buying yarn when they go. I would just suggest if you're the kind of person who like needs a budget, plan on that ahead of time, like make a budget for yourself. And the other thing that can be really helpful to people is if you go knowing what you want to buy and what you want to knit for. So what if you have a bunch of things saved on Ravelry, let's say, and you have like 3 sweaters that you're looking forward to knitting like this winter, or like a shawl and a sweater, whatever it is, kind of plan that out. That can be helpful, like just knowing what to shop for. So you can say, I want to knit this sweater, and you go through the specs of that pattern and figure out how many skeins of yarn and what weight and how many different colors, that sort of thing. That way when you go, you can have a list of the specific things you're looking for, so that you're not just overwhelmed, like, oh, I love this yarn, but I don't know how much to buy, and I don't know what it's gonna be for, so I don't wanna buy too much or too little. It's great to have specific projects in mind when you go. That way you can kind of just check it off a list and know exactly what you're shopping for. There's also, you can just get an idea of like how many skeins in general you need for like a sweater and a certain weight of yarn. There used to be an app for that. I can't remember what it's called. If you remember, you can leave a comment below. But I know somebody had put together like a book or an app for that where it would estimate how much yards in a particular weight you need for a certain size bust of a sweater. So that can be good. You know, I usually can get away with like 5 skeins of worsted weight if it's like a solid for a solid sweater. I have like a good idea since I've been designing for a while, but if you're not sure, you can just pull up a pattern that you've knit before and get an idea of the amount of yarn that you used for that one. And like, let's say you find a fingering weight yarn that you just absolutely love and you want to make sure you have enough, just pull up an old pattern that you knit on Ravelry, look at the size you knit and how much yarn they recommended, maybe round up to get a little more just so that you can be sure you have enough. And you can go that way to look for yarn. And or you can just buy everything that you like that you see. I always just suggest like buying more than you think you need, because whatever yarn they have at the fairgrounds, they're probably going to sell out or sell most of it, and you don't want to run out of like that dye lot when you're working on something. So I would always suggest getting a little bit more rather than a little bit less. And yep, those are all the questions I had for today. The sweater that I figured I'd show, the sweater that I'm wearing right now, I can show you a little bit more of. This is an older design. It's called Marsh Song, and it has this hem on the bottom that's lacy hem, and it's like a high-low hem. And this one's created by doing short rows on the back and all the way up to here, which makes it higher in the front, longer in the back. And it's got this kind of pretty lace pattern there. And then it's got just like a deep V-neck and 3/4 sleeves. This one has set-in sleeves that I think I worked from the top down. So yeah, this is one that I haven't worn in a long time, so nice to wear it today. It's called Marsh Song. I can link that one below. And then over my shoulder, you'll see a new design that's coming out. Let's see when that, in I think 2 weeks or so. I think, yeah, it's coming out at the end of September, that last week, whatever that is. So that one is one that I'm really excited about. I got this yarn. This is the one I was talking about in the last episode when I recently went, or last year, I went to the Black Pearl yarn shop here on the Cape in Sandwich, and I got this, I think it's like Patagonia wool. It's in 2 different blue shades, and I just loved the colors, and I got it, and it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to knit with it, but when I decided on this, it came together, and I just love it so much. I don't have a name for the sweater yet though, so if you see it and it somehow strikes you and you think of a name, leave me a comment below. I'd love to have some help with that. I may put it out on Instagram too to get some help naming it. It's just different color work motifs all the way down and all the way down the sleeves. It's a cozy, comfy fit. This is probably one that I'm gonna bring to Rhinebeck because it's just one of my favorite recent sweaters. And I haven't done color work much lately, so it's just a really fun, like, the contrast really allows you to see the patterns. So yeah, if you have suggestions for that, definitely let me know. I'm gonna link all those things I mentioned below in the show notes, as well as it always has a link to my email newsletter and test knitting, and also a form where you can submit a question if you have a question for a future episode, or you can just leave it in the comments below if you have a question. Yeah, thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next week. Bye.